Very happy to introduce Florencio Portocarrero, who many of you probably know. Florencio is a postdoc who has been working with Vanessa Barbano, and today we'll hear about research they've been doing. Florencio studies issues at the intersection of business and society, focusing on societal and environmental sustainability. One of his streams of research examines how different types of corporate social responsibility can foster the critical global imperative of social and environmental sustainability. And in the fall, Florencio will be taking new faculty position at London School of Economics.
Thank you everyone for being here to listen to what might be a little peripheral to the core of LEAD. But I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be presenting in front of this audience the work that Vanessa and I and a couple of PhD students from the business school have been working on for the past year and a half.
I can't hear.
We can join. Oh, we can join. Can you hear us now?
Yes, yes.
You can hear us? Yeah. Your mic? Can you hear us now? Now good? Okay. Thank you, Catherine. Well, we figured it out. Yes. So yes, we're investing trillions of dollars in these initiatives, and we're having a few issues. Organizations are having a few issues when implementing these initiatives, specifically related to, let me get back here, specifically related to the engagement that potential beneficiaries of these initiatives have. There are different types of engagement, and we're actually tackling specific types of engagements of different beneficiaries of these initiatives with the initiatives. So the large research question for these sets of projects that we're working on is, can the framing of the communication messages that we use to invite and remind different types of actors or beneficiaries to sustainability-focused events influence the reaction to these events, the response to the messages that they receive? With that in mind, I think it's first important to define what communication frames are. And framing in general refers to this process by which people develop a particular conceptualization of an issue, or they reorient their thinking about a specific issue. And there are many different types of frames, and they can only be defined in relation to the specific issue or event or actor that is being studied. So for example, when we see in the news how politicians and people in the news frame issues as, around Social Security reform, we see very different framings to when they talk about immigration reform, for example. So in the first project that I will be presenting today, where I will be presenting the results of two different field experiments. We're looking at a particular way of framing communication based on a theory that is called regulatory focus theory. And the different types of framing are called promotion or prevention frames. I will go deeper into the theory and what each frame touches upon in a second. And then the second project, which I will be presenting only one study for that, and actually we don't have results for the study yet. We're launching the study tomorrow, is using a different type of frame and a different actor. This is using an instrumental versus a prosocial framing for the communication, and the setting and the actor is different as well. So the overview of the first project, consisting of two different studies, is around this research question, which is, what are the effects of promotion versus prevention communication frames on necessity entrepreneurs' participation rates in environmental and sustainability and responsible training programs? So going back to this high-level motivation, the idea to study communications frame emerged from me working in developing countries, specifically in South America, with different for-profit and NGOs that were implementing training programs for micro-entrepreneurs from vulnerable populations. And in that context, those actors have absolutely no time to attend training sessions because they have a family and they need to work to take food to the table. But organizations, private and for-profit and nonprofit organizations, were investing so much money trying to design effective training programs to improve the skills of these entrepreneurs. So in the middle of this issue that they were facing, we started thinking of different alternative solutions to try to recruit more participants and to try to reduce the dropout rate once the training starts and some entrepreneurs started participating in the programs. One of these ways of tackling this engagement of entrepreneurs with these initiatives is through the framing of the communications that we use to recruit them and to remind them of different sessions that they have to attend. So what did we do? We implemented two RCTs, two fully randomized field experiments to explore the effectiveness of this type of framing. So what is this type of framing, or what does regulatory focus theory tells us? It tells us that people have two distinct self-regulatory focus. The first one is promotion focus, that says that people are motivated by growth and development needs. And these people are just eager to do stuff and to ensure gains. And some people are, as opposed to being motivated by this promotion focus, are regulated or motivated by a prevention focus. And these are just responsive to more security needs and predominates vigilance and ensuring non-losses. So people are just afraid of losing anything. So depending on this very intrinsic motivation that people could have, if you frame a communication for someone that is more high on promotion focus in a promotion way, then they should be more likely to act. If you frame something from a prevention perspective to people that are high on prevention orientation, they should be more likely to act. So this is a way of trying to better target a specific audience. Now, why did we choose specifically this type of distinct framings for this particular population? Well, necessity entrepreneurs, now I get like, what are necessity entrepreneurs, right? And who are these actors? So necessity entrepreneurs are micro entrepreneurs. So they own micro businesses, very small, tiny businesses that started to fulfill the basic needs of these people, as opposed to the more traditional that we call in academia, at least in the field of management, opportunity entrepreneurs, which is what we all recognize more as entrepreneur when we talk about an entrepreneur, who are people that are actually pursuing innovation and wealth generation. However, most of entrepreneurs in the world are necessity entrepreneurs, not opportunity entrepreneurs. And necessity entrepreneurs turn to venture creation due to the lack of employment opportunities, and they are just trying to replicate already existing businesses to sustain themselves and their family. So actually targeting this population of entrepreneurs could have a large impact on society in general. So what is the first field experiment that we implemented? So we partnered with one of the world's leading drink and brewing companies in a country in South America to explore the use of these two alternative frames as part of the implementation of one corporate sponsor training program that they've had in place now for almost 20 years. So for the past 20 years, this one company, this brewing company, and this is not public, so I can say the name of the company is AB InBev. They own a bunch of beers throughout the world. And in emerging economies, their main distribution channel are bodegas, corner stores, right? So in Peru, where we implemented this experiment, there are over 260,000 bodegas. And more than 60% of their business is through the business of these bodegas. So they've been training bodegueros, bodega owners, for the past 20 years, and they've been implementing 1 or 2 training sessions, and they've been targeting a specific portion of the 260,000 bodega owners that they constantly work with. So for this year, or last year actually, they designed a training program consisting of 6 training sessions, all framed around responsible small business management skills, with one session that was specifically about environmental behaviors of them as business owners and their business. And the company selected 4,517 bodegueros to be targeted with this one training session. Now, they don't have to register and they don't have to participate in the entire training program. They can see the menu of the 6 sessions, and they can decide to self-select into just 1 or 2 or 3 or however many they wanna engage with. So what we did was we randomly assigned people to these 2 groups, and we sent them messages that were framed either in a promotion or prevention focus. And this is an example of a promotion focus message, and we use texts and WhatsApp to send them the messages and the reminders. So the promotion focus message reads, discover how to approach your customers and start learning strategies to increase your sales. The prevention focus starts with, don't miss out on how to approach your customers and explore strategies to prevent sales downturns. This was in Spanish, so the translation is not exact, but that's pretty much it, right? So are necessity entrepreneurs, the ones working for this company, more likely to respond and react to a message that is framed from a prevention focus or a promotion focus? We didn't really know. We thought that because these were necessity entrepreneurs and they've been pushed by society to this position where they had to start a business, that maybe the prevention focus would be more effective. However, that's actually not what we found. This is just a table showing that our randomization process was effective, and we see no differences in any observable characteristics of the participants of 4,500 participants across a series of factors. And what we found regarding participation direction, so whether they actually decided to participate at least in one of the 6 sessions, and on how many sessions they decided to participate, that's the difference between direction and frequency, was an effect such that the bodegueros that received the opportunity frame message participated, were more likely to participate and participated with higher frequency. So 9.47% of the 2,200 people that were assigned to the promotion focus condition attended at least one session, compared to 7.57% of the people that were randomly assigned to the prevention condition. Now, this might not seem large, but when you start thinking of like millions of people that could potentially be reached, we're talking about a significant difference between just a simple framing of messages to remind people to participate in a training program. So, and we find a consistent pattern with also participation frequency. So for study 2, we sought to expand a little bit more the findings that we found on study 1, and we partner with a couple of different organizations, a Social Impact Lab and the UNDP, which is the development program from the United Nations. And we conducted another field experiment to implement, to try to do something similar with another training program for necessity entrepreneurs as well. It was also a six-week training program. The difference was that here we didn't have already a population that was gonna be specifically targeted, that was told by a company. People actually, necessity entrepreneurs had to pre-register, had to show somehow interest, and we finally got 1,256 people that had somehow showed interest in participating in this program that we randomly assigned to the two conditions. And this is, again, for this, we actually, since they had to pre-register to the training program, we asked for more information. So we actually have more information that we could use to assess the effectiveness of a randomization process. And we also evaluated participation direction, whether they decide to participate in at least one session or not, and the number of sessions they participated in. And again, we found the same pattern of results. So the people that were randomly assigned to receive the promotion focus messages participated at a rate of 39%, compared to the people that were randomly assigned to the prevention messages that participated at a rate of 32%. Why do we see a strong, bigger difference here? Because they had already sort of self-selected in. So the baseline, we were already expecting like at around 1/3 of people to engage in the training session, as opposed to the first training session where we expected around 8% of the people to engage with them. And we find a similar pattern of results for participation frequency. So for the second project, the last and third study, we are switching the actor, the target of the communication, and we are switching the manipulation that we use, the treatment that we use, the framing that we use for the messages. So here the research question is, what are the effects of instrumental versus prosocial communication frames on workers' engagement with an invitation and their participation rates in a climate-related conference? And some of you might know of this conference. This is the Climate and Investment Conference that the business school has been hosting now for like 10 years. We as LEAP organized a workshop right after the conference last year, and we're going to be organizing a workshop right after the conference this year. The conference will happen on April 19th, and it's mainly organized by a center housed at the business school, which is the Tamer Center. So we partner with them and with LEAP to manipulate the invitation that we're sending out for people to participate in this conference as well. But we thought that the opportunity, well, that the promotion versus preventions frame were not going to be effective for this particular population. Now, this is a conference about climate and investment. So we actually thought that having either an instrumental or a prosocial approach could be a way to try to increase likelihood of engagement with the message that we send out. And again, this is one field experiment that we're implementing that is already complete. Design is closed and we're launching tomorrow with the first round of invitations to the conference. So I'm going to skip these, but prosocial motivations enhance positive contributions to communities. Instrumental motivations are about maximizing profits in general. And there are like different factors that could influence who holds each of these motivations more closely when making decisions. So we're outreaching via email. We're sending invitations to 28,000 contacts, although half of them could potentially attend because the other half live in different parts of the country, but we're using the Tamer Center's database, so we're just spamming everyone. Now, we will send a follow-up email using the same randomization process so that people can actually watch the recording of different portions of the conference. So in that follow-up email that is part of this study, it doesn't really matter whether they live close by so that they can attend the conference in person. And the outcomes that we're going to be looking at is whether they actually open the email. So we're manipulating even the subject of the email, the clicks that they do inside the email, whether they click to learn more about LEAP, about the Tamer Center, whether they actually register for the conference, and eventually the only behavioral outcome is whether they attend the conference or not. And this is again our table with our randomization that was effective of the 28,000 people. And this is an example of the manipulations. And in blue, we have the instrumental manipulation, and in green, we have the prosocial one. So in blue, it's like words that have to do more with profit and value generation. In green, you have words that have to do more with like social good, right? So efficiently, sustainably, the global economy, our shared world, economically strategic, environmentally responsible, a strategic mix, a committed set of, who can help you benefit from the climate technology landscape, all united by the shared mission of improving global environmental outcomes, right? So we're gonna see whether people respond differently to either one of these two frames, and then we're gonna be able to explore heterogeneity in that response. And so we are launching tomorrow. We send 3 sets of invitation emails. The conference is on April 19th. We expect to send the follow-up email at the beginning of May, and we will be conducting analysis of results towards the end of May into June. And then we're going to write an abstract of this to send it somewhere. So we're going to, I think I'm out of time now, but what I was interested in hearing from you, maybe we can chat after, is whether you could think of a new different context where we could use this sort of framing to increase engagement of participants, and maybe alternative frames, right? So I presented on 2 different frames, but there are potentially many different frames that we can use to see whether people will be more likely or less likely to react to climate-related information. And there's also some discussion here that I don't have time to present, but thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Florencio. We are going to have time for a few questions, so maybe we can dive into some of your discussion areas during Q&A. So I think we have time for 2 questions. Oh.
Sorry, I mean, we're looking. Hi, well, thanks so much, Florencio. This was amazing, really. I'm very curious, in the first 2 projects that you presented, one of my question is whether for the bodegueros, the source of the communication was like a trusted source, and if you guys have looked at, like differences from there. And then my other curiosity was, you had a table of different variables, right, that describe the your different, like the recipients of the communication. I was curious if you found any correlation between, some characteristics and whether they reacted better to one or the other approach.
Yes, so for study 1 and 2,
Maybe you want to take the mic also.
so for study 1, we did find that all the different characteristics that we had that were only for the region in the country where they were from, and a couple of gender and a couple of other things, everything was predictive of whether they participated in the training or not. But we only had like 4 observable characteristics, right? For the second study, for which we actually had a lot more information, we found things that were not really surprising to me. For example, entrepreneurs that have children at home participate at lower rates than entrepreneurs that don't have children at home, right? Like things like that. And for study 1, we used the system that the brewing company uses to communicate with the bodegueros. Now, that is different to study 2, in which we used text messages and WhatsApp messages, because people use, like, especially in Peru and in many developing countries, and actually around the world, people use WhatsApp a lot. So everyone's looking at their WhatsApp, probably even more than messages. I'm not so sure how frequently bodegueros, go into this platform to learn about the initiatives of the brewing company. They do use it though to issue new orders of new products, for example.
Hello, I have a question for you. Were these data presented to the Aspen climate idea that finished yesterday?
Sorry, to where?
It was in Miami.
Uh-huh. No, this wasn't presented there.
It was also about these issues. Maybe it would have been a good idea.
Yes, there's certainly, I mean, we just submitted for the first time the first set of 2 studies to a conference, and we should be expecting to hear, we're expecting to hear from the conference back like in the next 2 weeks. So that was the first submission that we have. We're submitting it to another specialized conference in the UK around communications in corporate social responsibility issues. And we're submitting it to a special issue of the main journal in my field to try to get this published, the first 2 sets. Now, for the second project, the third study, we still need to wait for results and potentially add on a second study in another context using the same type of manipulations to ensure robustness of these effects. Yes.
Because that conference is the 3rd year in a row that is happening. It's exactly about
These issues.
climate and entrepreneurship. And
Thank you for that. Yes.
Oh, one more question from Galen?
So this idea of prevention versus promotion mindsets, do we know, like in the general population, what percent, do we think that this is equally distributed across the population, or that there's a lot more people of one type or another, or is that sort of just, yeah, what can you tell us about sort of the background understanding of how people are that you're connecting to?
So that is a great question, and I don't have the answer to that question for the general population. We do know, because there are like potentially hundreds of studies, and the person actually, the researcher that came up with this theory, with regulatory focus theory, is a professor here at Columbia Business School. He developed the theory in the 80s. And there are like so many award-winning studies using this theory, finding differences in investment. For example, we know that when analysts read reports from companies that have more a promotion than a prevention frame, they're going to react and write more good things about the report. So it's been explored and used in many different contexts, and we know that it's effective and that people actually are driven by one of these two tendencies. But it's also context dependent. So you could be in a context where you end up being more prevention focused, and in a context where you want more gains and you end up being more promotion focused. But that is a great question. We have 3 management PhD students here. They might actually know whether the general population has a high. I'm assuming that depending on the country, like I would imagine that in emerging economies, we're gonna see more people with a prevention focus, and maybe in more developed countries, we're gonna see, or maybe the other way around, maybe we'll see that Democrats are more promotion focused and Republicans are more prevent. I don't know, right? Like, but these are all interesting questions. Yes.
Yeah, I've been working in corporate communications for sustainability. I don't work there now, but couple framing that I thought of was if you use a statistic versus if you use a personal motive.
Like
Yeah, I'd love to follow.
Concrete information. Oh, yes.
Yeah, so if you use a like the car companies tend to do this, like reduce the emissions by X% versus like your kids deserve a future.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, this has been used, frame has been used a lot in many different settings, from public policy, health. All the campaigns about stop smoking took like either a loss or gain approach. You're gonna die soon versus you can live longer if you stop smoking. Triggering anxiety is more important to make people stop smoke, but yeah.